Okay, speciation. And this is one of the bullet points about 20. Two separate species, production of species. Now remember that that macroevolution, so speciation is just how new species form. Macroevolution is different species. Microevolution is just little changes within a species. Okay? Takes place over a short period of time and results in changes within populations. So we looked at microevolution in bacterial resistance. Okay, so bacterial resistance is microevolution. Macroevolution, millions of years, and results in new species. And that image shows that. Okay, so this is a little bit background. So species, a group of individuals, okay, who interbreed, produce viable fertile offspring. Genus, species of a polar bear. That's its location. Okay, it's maritimus because it lives by oceans, depends on oceans. Versus Arctis, very different. Okay, different species, two different species. So, do they reproduce? No, but climate change is changing some of this. Okay, and you can see here the current range of the grizzly bear. Notice that way up in the Arctic, lots of them down in Alberta. A big area that's they've been driven off in the prairies, that's extirpation. Okay. Well, here goes. Now, a few years ago, a hunter, an American hunter, produced this. What do you call it? It's got the hump of a grizzly bear. It's got the blunt nose of a grizzly bear. But it's got the coloration and markings of a polar bear. Well, check this out. This is what they're finding in climate change. There's a grizzly bear. Here's polar bears scavenging on a dead carcass. And that carcass would be of a whale in the Arctic. So they interbreed. So are they different species? And we call this a growler. Okay. Yeah, it's a hybrid. It's a mix of the two. Now, apart from that, generally though, uh, grizzly bears and polar bears don't interbreed because we consider them different species. And so why don't they interbreed? And this slide shows a variety of reasons that where gene flow does not occur. Okay, and we just want to quickly go through reasons why different species don't do it, okay, and produce viable offsprings. Okay, so the first one, so the first reason for reproductive isolation, these prezygotic barriers. Habitat isolation. These species don't live in the same habitat, so that's why they don't get together. So these are barriers before they have sex, pre-sex barriers. Time isolation. These different skunks reproduce one at day, one at night, okay? Behavioral isolation. If you and watch this video, it's hilarious, okay? If you don't do the blue-footed booby dance, you don't get to have mating. So only those that know how to do the dance get to do it, okay? Mechanical isolation. If the parts don't fit, then you're not able to do it either, okay? As in some different species of snails. Gamete isolation, okay? The gamete isolation would be having to do with the fact that the gametes are different. The different sperm, like only one certain type of sperm can penetrate one type of egg. Okay, reduced hybrid viability. When hybrids are born, they don't live to reach maturity, sexual maturity. So this is once there has sex occurred. Okay, these things are post. Okay, we make a baby now, but they're not viable. Okay, horses and donkeys make mules, but they have slightly different chromosomes. So because the horse and donkeys have different chromosomes, the mules are sterile. They don't produce egg and sperm. So there's reduced hybrid fertility. Okay, and the hybrid breakdown this means that they can be viable, but when they mate in the second generation, offspring of the next generation are feeble or sterile. Okay, so what do I want you to get out of this? Different species don't mate generally for reasons of pre-sex, or if they have sex, there's barriers over here as well. Okay. Okay, types of speciation. Allopatric, when a population is divided into two isolated subpopulations. Sympatric occurs in populations that live in the same geographic area. So these are physical barriers. These are reproductive barriers, sympatric. Allopatric speciation. Original population is geographically isolated. Different variations because you've got different selection pressures. Okay, so now they're geographically isolated by this river. And this area is going to have slightly different selection pressures than this area, different light, for example. Natural selection acts on the selected separated organisms when members of the two populations, so we'll put number 2 here and 3, and when these populations are brought back together, they no longer interbreed. Good example of this, Grand Canyon. Okay, you've got different species of squirrel on either side because there's slightly different selection pressures. Okay, the book looks at this one here. When these populations were originally together, we get continental drift. They become physically isolated. Different selection pressures leads to different frog species. Okay, and we can see when the breaks started occurring here with geographical isolation, leading to allopatric speciation. Sympatric. Now, this is in your textbook, so let's go through it. Researchers from the University of Leiden placed males and females of these different fish species together in aquarium tanks, one with natural light and one with orange light. Okay, under normal light, the two species are noticeably different in coloration. You can see those colors. But under the same monochromatic light, the species look identical. Okay, so they're swimming around, and now we're going to change their environment, or they can't tell whether you're from a Nairiri or a Pundamilla species. Under normal light conditions, females of each species mated only with their own species, but under orange light, females of each species mated indiscriminately with males of both. So they are actually to change this over here is sympatric speciation. They're all swimming around in the uh, in the same pond, but they discriminate. They only mate with their species. But when they can't tell the species, that stops sympatric speciation. So the research concluded that the mate choice by females based on coloration is the main reproductive barrier. Okay, and we talked about those reproductive, that would be a prezygotic barrier, right? Prezygotic behavioral barrier, okay? And there they are, under orange light, when they couldn't tell the difference between them, they produced this hybrid, turbid water hybrid. Okay, we'll leave it at that.